Hello everybody, welcome to a mini-series of the Bideo. There won't be as many video games in this part of the podcast, and normally we wouldn't do such a thing, but we have released on a couple of new platforms, and we think it would be interesting to do sort of an interview process and ask questions of each other, and, just so the new listeners can get an understanding of who we are, why we do this podcast, and, just general stuff about us. So I will be interviewing myself, which is, unorthodox, but here we go. Let's start.
Zingo dingo! Question numero uno. What do you get out of the video?
Am I really doing this bit?
You sure are. Welcome to 101.7, The Bideo. Now answer the question.
I would say I get to hear my friends' opinions on the games we're playing, even though we don't get to talk a whole lot because we're all very busy with work. I enjoy having something to do around video games that isn't necessarily just playing them. Even though I love playing games, it's cool to do something as like a project outside of the whole playing them thing. I like to share my opinion, and now that we have a podcast on multiple platforms, I can share that with a ton of people, and I just think that's awesome.
Question the second. What would you add or remove from the video?
Jesus, I can't believe I'm doing this. But, okay. I feel like we've removed all the things I didn't want, and so now we've trimmed down the content into a much more manageable time frame, and I don't feel like I have to force anybody to speed up, but I would like to add an emails section or a questions section, where we get to actually interact with the listeners and get opinions and feedback and the such.
Good answer. Good answer. Question 3. Do you think 2 podcasts a month is enough? Or maybe it's too much? Or maybe it's just right? What do you think?
Honestly, I think every 2 weeks is a good amount, good amount of time between podcasts, so we're not being super redundant with the games we've been playing. 2 weeks is a good amount of time to move between games. And like a month would definitely be too long. We'd all have like 30 games that we would have been playing, and that would just be way too much to try and fit into like a 1.5 to 2.5 hour period. That being said, there are some times where I'm very busy and I got a lot going on, and it is really hard to like be the host and edit and upload and try to find new platforms and get like the artwork together from friends of ours who did the artwork and the songs and such, and find the opening songs and something to stick to and plan it out. But overall, it's like a labor of love, and I don't think it's too much work. It's just that I might be a little bit lazy.
Not too lazy to create a false persona for a mini-series of your podcast. How about we move on to question 4? How do video games make you feel?
This is by far the dumbest thing I have ever done, but video games make me super happy. They're one of the very, very, very few things in life where I can think about them and just be happy. There's no negative feelings towards them almost ever. The worst it ever is like very neutral feelings. And even when I heavily criticize games, or I say this game sucks, it's usually just to spark conversation or, just try to throw an opinion out there. And it doesn't mean that I really hate the game. It's just that I think differently of the game that maybe other people would, There's never bad blood there. I'm always happy to play even a bad game. Like, even bad games make me happy in their own special way.
Zingo dingo! What an answer! I'm so glad we asked you to be a part of this show. As for question 5, do you feel any pride in the video? Are you excited to be a part of it?
First off, this is my show, and as soon as I'm done with this whatever garbage joke bit I created, we'll be going back to this format where I don't make a complete ass of myself. As for do I feel pride in the video, I feel like it's one of the biggest accomplishments I've ever done, if that makes any sense. I have gathered friends and I've obtained opinions and thoughts and we've got it out. And I would say getting the podcast onto major media platforms like Spotify and Google Play Music it's amazing. Like, I never thought I would ever be able to do such things. I never thought anything I would create would be somewhere other human beings in the world would see and just could. Like, anybody can listen to this right now. Like, this is up on Spotify right now, and people can just go to their web browser and download Spotify, or they can download it to their phone or whatever, and you could search for the Bideo. It's a thing anybody has access to, and it's not like a complicated thing. People could stumble upon the Bideo by just, oh, this is similar to the other podcasts you like. Maybe you'll like these guys, and I hope you do. I hope you love us guys. We're pretty cool dudes. And that tone of the way I answered that question sort of answers the next question of, am I excited to be a part of it? I am super glad I started the Bideo. It's one of the best things I've done with my life. I know it sounds stupid or silly, but it's a cool project. It's a cool thing I do on the side. And it's really telling to my hobbies. I love video games so much that I'm willing to do a show about video games and upload it to where people can see it on Spotify or Google Play Music. You could listen to this and it's easy to access. Like, I'm really sure the other guys are not going to be as excited about this as I am. But this is something I'm super proud of. We've come super far. If you listen to the first episode of this podcast and and not this one. Don't compare the first one to this one. This one is not what this podcast is about. But maybe episode 28 or the next episode after this. If you compare the two, we've grown so much. Our audio quality is so much better, and you can just tell we're all way more excited. We all have lost some of the habits that we used to have, and now we discuss the games more. We all have a much lighter attitude. It has become a thing people might actually want to listen to, and that's just so exciting for me.
Question 6. Is there anything you ever wanted to contribute to the Bideo, but time was too big of a factor? And if so, what was it?
Honestly, as I was typing up these questions, I don't know what I was thinking. This is a weirdly phrased question. I would say in the episode we had with Leah on Nostalgia Fest, I think it was episode 27, it felt like I was definitely trying to get people to speed up their nostalgia, because there are file size limits, and I do not want to edit a 4-hour episode, So I try to keep it around 2 hours. 2.5 is way too much. An hour and a half is okay, but I definitely want some more. But overall, there's nothing I'd really like to contribute more. I usually get what I'm looking to get said, And ultimately, if we did add an email segment to the podcast, we would definitely have to increase the time. I don't think we'd cut anything, but we'd definitely have an added 15 to 20 minutes just to answer emails. And I think that would be super exciting and definitely worth taking that time.
Question 7. Are there any solo projects that you would like to incorporate into the Bideo?
Honestly, yes. And I'm really glad that you stopped acting like a butt. And you're just asking the questions now. So that's a lot less work for me to do. I would say I would like to do reviews for games as a whole. I know Nick is building a website, and I'd like to throw reviews up there and do YouTube videos. And I know Steve has also expressed interest in creating videos like that, just to have something on a website. I'm not sure what I want the video to be. At first, it was just a podcast, and now I kind of want it to be a whole gaming thing. I'd like to have reviews and not previews, because we're not like actually a journalism thing or anything like that. But I think it'd be fun to review like games like we're doing on the list right now. So we all played Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy, I believe, or Game Boy Color. And I think it'd be interesting just to do a review of it. We talked about it on the podcast, but it'd be cool to do an actual video review in which I show gameplay footage and maybe award it a 5 out of 32 Benjamins or whatever scaling system for rating we create. I think that would be interesting. Like, I do like streaming video games, and I definitely like creating videos, and it feels like I don't have a lot of time for that with a 9-to-5 job. But it's something I would like to do, and I'm willing to put in the work to do it. I just think it would be a lot of fun.
Question 8. In your opinion, what do you bring to the table?
As I said before, I'm the one who edits the podcast. I'm the one who schedules the podcast, and I host it, and I'm the one who pays the money to put it on the Podbean, or what do you call it, distributor? I super love Podbean, by the way. I'm also the one who tried to put us on Spotify and Google Play and soonish iTunes, but I'm not sure if that one's gonna pan out. I feel like I definitely bring a lot to the table. Like, they have definitely said in the past that this is my podcast, even though I am trying very hard to share this podcast. This is our podcast, not mine. I definitely want to make that very, very clear that this is not just my thing. This is a thing I want to share with them. But yeah, that's what I bring to the table.
Question 9. What more could you do? Or do you think you do too much?
I definitely think I do too much, but I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I'm going to continue doing as much as possible for this podcast because it means so much to me. It is exciting to do. It's fun to do with my friends. It's fun to get their opinions. It's fun to talk to them. It's fun to come up with topics and talk about those topics in just a way that would not come up naturally. Like, in a natural conversation, I'm going to use this as an example. We'd maybe talk about a nostalgic memory or whatever, but we'd never really go back and think about these nostalgic memories and come up with all of them and just share them. That is something that's very special and exclusive to this podcast, is that we would say things or share things that we normally wouldn't because it just doesn't come up naturally. And forcing a topic like that is fun. It's cool to hear about Steve back in his baseball days, going through his Christmas presents and playing video games all morning. It's really cool. I don't know if I could do more for the podcast, or the video, I should say. Just because I feel like I do so much, I don't feel like I can actually do more. But what I could do, I guess, is make reviews. And man, that's just another can of worms opening up there. That's a lot of work and a lot of continued effort on my part, especially since I already have a 9-to-5. This is entirely a hobby that I don't make any money on. And it's just... I want to say it plays second fiddle to my job, but definitely when I'm at my job, I'm thinking about video games and the video. That's super important to me in my normal everyday life.
Well, Noah, thank you for being here on this wonderful day. Thank you for answering all the questions I had in this interview. Is there anything else you would like to say to the audience or maybe your fellow Bideo members?
Actually, yeah. I'd like to thank any and all listeners, and the people who support us, and who actually listen to the podcast. It's a lot of fun to do, and I do it for everybody else and myself. I really thank you for listening. It's exciting, and if you're a recurring listener, or what do they call recurring listeners? If you're a fan of the Bideo, email us at thebideo@gmail.com, or you can go to thebideo.com. Make sure you put a "the" in there, because there's another website that you don't want nothing to do with. Go to thebideo.com, go to contact us, and fill out the form, and email or send us or whatever the question or whatever you've got to say. Because I would like listener interaction. It's cool to hear people's opinions. That's kind of why I made a podcast, and I'd like to hear other people's perspective. So thank you for listening, and thank you for listening in the future. If you continue to stick with us, because we're always improving. If you go back and listen to episode 1, and if you listen to this mini-series now, we've improved so much. We're getting so good at talking in a show format, and our audio quality is only getting better and better. We might not be the best sounding podcast out on there, on the Spotify and the Google Play. Sorry, I just want to keep shoveling that in because I'm super proud of what I've created. But yeah, it's hard to be such high quality over the internet, over Discord, and way back in the beginning, Skype. But yeah, really, seriously, thank you, and I hope the Bideo members also love what we're doing, because if they don't, I don't know why they're on the Bideo. But yeah, next up you'll be listening to my interview of Steve. Shh, don't tell him I'm doing this really dumb, cringy bit. It'll make that so much more exciting. But until then, take care. Please, email or send us any sort of anything. It's cool to have viewer or listener interaction. Hey everybody, welcome to the second part of the interview of part 1. It's part 2 of part 1, where I interview Steve, and he can answer questions in an interview. Say hi, Steve.
Hi, Noah. Hi, listeners.
Maybe say a little more so I can scroll up and read the questions.
Well, as one of 3 possible choices that Noah could have had for the interview series, I'm honored that he picked me. And even though it may not be apparent in the order that the interviews are released, I'm honored that you picked me first, after picking yourself.
There is no order. I picked you kind of at random. But
actually, I picked the time myself, so
yeah.
I guess a little bit of self-empowerment. I chose me.
I just lied to everybody. All right. So are you ready?
I am ready to go.
Okay, before we get into this, I have to let you know that I have a medical condition. Do you know what it is?
I don't know what it is.
Okay, when recording myself and there's a list of questions in front of me, I change personalities into a radio talk show host. I'm just warning you ahead of time.
I will put away all my preconceived notions of who Noah is.
All right, I take some serious medication for this, but I did not take it today. So are you ready?
Let's do it.
Question 1. What do you feel you get out of the Bideo?
Man, that condition flared up fast.
It's strong.
So the Bideo actually is a couple things for me. One, kind of selfishly, I like capturing and documenting my experiences with games over time. So for a long time, I've used the Backloggery, the website, thebackloggery.com, to track like what I own, what I'm beating, what I'm playing, stuff like that. But that is only capturing the latest update. The Bideo is sort of a snapshot in time for me to see what was I playing on this given date. What was I like? What were my opinions on this game? Have those changed over time, etc.? Like a really good example for me is that if you go back and listen to the Final Fantasy 15 Quickcast, I'm very positive on that game. I was very excited to be playing that, And since beating that game, and as time has gone on, my opinion on that game has wildly shifted. And I wouldn't have a good like capture of those feelings of excitement if I hadn't done that podcast. So I like that it gives me that opportunity. On top of that, I think that the video is it's just a good opportunity for me to catch up with my friends, especially with you who doesn't live within like easy driving distance. It's a good touch base just to be like hanging out with your buddies and talking about the games that you're playing and staying up to date and connected and stuff like that. And I like the idea that all that stuff can be shared in a way that is hopefully entertaining with other people.
Wow, what a touching answer. So, I, in my interview, I agreed, and with that second part, it's like good to catch up.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say something, but I totally forgot. So we'll move on to question 2. You're done with question 1, right?
Yeah.
Good. All right. What would you like to add or remove from the video?
I don't know if there's anything specific that I would like to add, but I do think that our best episodes are episodes that have structure, but a loose structure. So I think that I would like to contribute a little more in terms of helping to make sure that episodes have sort of a thematic element, or at least there's a sort of focal point around the episode. We're always going to talk about the games that we've been playing and the games that we're interested in, and any like big news stories that came up that are really worth talking about. But I like that in situations where maybe there's not like a huge new announcement to talk about, that we do have like what are our top X RPGs or something. I think those episodes end up creating some of the best discussions. So I guess to go back to the question, I'd like to add a little bit more of a theme for the episodes, and if we could find smart ways to do it, possibly some recurring segments. I don't know what those would be, so I don't want to like, I'm not married to that idea, but I like the idea of something that comes up regularly or somewhat regularly, as a consistency from episode to episode.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. I think all of our episodes are good, and everyone should go listen to all of them. But I don't know. I think you're right. Some more themes or structure could be good. But again, how much structure is too much structure? Where it feels very formal?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want it to feel formal. I mean, the show is at its best when it is, and because it is, mostly just the four of us hopping online into a call and talking to each other, but pressing record while we do it, right? Like the conversations we're having on the podcast wouldn't really be any different if we weren't being recorded. And so I wouldn't want to take away that natural element. More, it's kind of like deciding, hey, what do we want to talk about today? And then how we talk about it will still be just as a bunch of friends that love games.
Yeah, I can see that. I really like our organic nature.
Yep.
And I suppose I could be better about preparing an actual topic or theme, or making sure everybody's on the same page too.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't supposed to say mm-hmm. You were supposed to say, no, you do plenty. You're a great guy. But, that's okay.
You absolutely do plenty, and you're a great guy.
Dang it. Right. Is that your final answer? Both about the adding and removing, adding and removing, and that I'm a great guy?
Yes, that is. For
Okay.
both.
Good. I like those answers.
It's hard for me not to ask you the same questions back because I'm curious about your answers, but I know that you have your own interview that I will listen to. So
honestly, this episode maybe just goes up in 40 minutes. Like it was really easy. I already edited my part, so I just have to edit this part, and this is going pretty easily, so it might not have a lot of editing to do. Anyway, question 3. Do you think 2 podcasts a month is enough? Or maybe it's too much? Or maybe it's just right, honestly.
Honestly, my answer is different depending on whose position I'm sitting in. As a consumer of podcasts, as someone that listens to podcasts regularly, I like a weekly show. I think weekly is a good cadence, and I hate the feeling of waiting around for a new episode of a podcast that you love. But realistically, in terms of being able to keep a schedule, I think 2 podcasts a month is the right amount for us to record. I don't want to overcommit and underdeliver, and it can be really hard to get 4 people's schedules to line up every week. So I think 2 podcasts a month is good, but I would like us, when we can, to maybe start adding in some smaller episodes like these interviews in between the main podcasts to try to, pepper in a little bit extra to the upload schedule.
You literally just parroted my answer, almost word for word.
Well, it's good. We're on the same page then.
Yeah. And now that I'm looking at these questions, it feels like some of them are just like, do you guys do enough? I think I do too much, you guys. You guys should do more. But that's really not what I meant. It's just, all these questions kind of just look like that.
I don't read them that way. I think you could, but I don't think that's the intention.
Okay, that's just how I read them. Anyway, Zingo Dingo, how do video games make you feel?
Complete, perfect, happy, like there's a reason to keep going on in the world. Every time that I have the chance to sit down and play them, it is the single best day of my life. And all I want to do is play them. And when I'm not playing them, I'm thinking about them, and I want to be doing other things related to them. I want to be making videos and podcasts and posting about them online and just filling my brain with them at all times.
All right, so just imagine all of your answers, but me saying them so far. And you, man, you have... I'm sorry these interviews are just the same thing.
Well, okay. If anyone was challenging us that we were friends before the podcast for a reason, it's probably apparent now that we are definitely friends.
Oh, that is just so true.
I don't want to speak on behalf of the other people, but I'm going to make an educated guess that your interview and my interview come out sounding more similar to each other than any other 2 interviews.
That's probably true, and I think it's going to feel like the interview of you and me are going to feel a lot more, I don't know, organic and funny, maybe, I guess, just because we've been friends for so long and we are actually just super similar guys.
We really are.
There is an intense amount of chemistry in this pair.
You know what? We are video game soulmates.
Aw, I agree. We are the 2 pillars of 3 pillars.
Yep.
So video games are a good thing to you. Make you okay.
Yes, video games are a positive in my life.
Alright, I was just checking and making sure. Question 5. Do you feel pride in the video? Or Bideo? I can't believe I misspoke like that. Are you excited to be a part of this podcast?
I am very excited to be a part of this podcast. So I think of the 4 of us, the 4 hosts on the show, and going back to when there was a different host in the early episodes, of everyone on the show, I started listening to podcasts first, and I think I listened to the most of them. These days, I think you probably listen to a lot of them too, but podcasts for me for many years have been like my main source of entertainment. And so I remember one time you were staying up here, we were having a gamer weekend, and we were driving back, and you were kind of throwing the idea out of like, man, I think I think I want to start a podcast. Would you be a host on? Would you be a co-host on my podcast? And I was so excited that you had the idea because I definitely loved podcasts and I definitely wanted to do one, but I didn't think anybody would actually care. So now that like someone else, like not that people wouldn't listen, but I didn't think that anyone else in our friends group would care enough to want to do one. And so then when you pitched the idea, I was like, yes, this will be perfect. Of anyone I know, Noah would be the perfect person to do a podcast with. And like in just the 45 minutes it took to drive back to your place, like I just built up such an intense level of excitement that like I was amped to do the first episode. And even though like life comes in the way and sometimes you're more in the mood to record than others, I'm always at least looking forward to recording the podcast. It has never been a burden. It's always been something that I look forward to. And I do feel pride towards it. Like I will happily point people to it, and it's something that I kind of enjoy going back and listening to myself sometimes. And I think if you're willing to listen to your own podcast, it's the mark of something that you are happy to put out.
All right, a few things to say about that. That was not a copy paste answer from my answer, so this is new content for everybody. I do remember that it was a night. I remember it very fondly. It was one of the first nights where you drove me back and we weren't sick of each other, I think. It was like the very first one of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we don't get sick of each other because we hate each other. It's just you spend 3 days with someone, you just kind of want to be alone.
We literally spend every waking moment with each other on a gamer weekend, and it's a little overwhelming for people introverted such as us.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely love my alone time. But yeah, I was also super proud of the video. I am glad you're here.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad that you wanted to do it. Like it was validating in a way when it's like you have an idea that you think would be fun, but don't have like the confidence or the energy to try to pursue that. Like the burst of like satisfying motivation that you get when someone else that you're close friends with comes to you with the same idea, where it's like, this will work because like this project has multiple people with the energy and excitement for it. Like I am pumped to see where this goes.
I didn't say this in my question one, but I part of this podcast is also me trying to motivate myself, or you know what I mean. I'm not a guy who finishes things, and so this podcast is actually just a testament to my rebelliousness against what I used to be and just sort of still am, you know? Like, we have done episodes of this. We have uploaded it. We've put it on Spotify and Google Play. Yes, I'm mentioning this in his interview, too. This is very amazing.
It really is. And you're right. It is validating just to, like, set... It's validating to give yourself a task and to fulfill that to actually, like, follow through. And we've done that, what, like 40 times? However many episodes we have now? And
30 according to everybody, so just be quiet. But yeah, it's super... We created a thing. A thing has been born, and we're gonna keep doing it, right?
I have no intention of stopping. Like, I am more motivated than ever for the video.
Okay, so if it ever comes down to two people video, it will be Noah Steve. That will be the combo.
And I will happily do it.
All right. I think we should move on to the next question to make sure this doesn't take up too much of your night. I'm sure you're a busy man with a lot of friends, such as video games.
It's all games. I'm going to get off this call, and I'm going to walk 3 feet to the left and turn on the PlayStation 4 and play Sekiro.
Me too. I might upload this, but whatever. Question 5 is actually super interesting, and I'm very interested in to hear everybody's opinions. Do you feel pride towards this podcast? Are you excited to be a part of what we are?
And even if our answers are different, I think as sort of the two minds that spawned the podcast, I'd be curious, I guess, to hear what the other two feel, especially Nick, who came on partway through.
Yeah, like I know on that car ride home, you were filled with excitement, and I was also just pretty excited, and I'm still excited to do a podcast, even though it is technically work. It is a labor of love.
Very much so.
All right, let's move on to 6. Are there times you wanted to contribute more? If so, what was it? Oh, I should add, time being a factor. That question was all over the place. Let me retry. Are there times you wanted to contribute more, but time was a factor? If so, what was it?
You know, my gut answer is no. I do feel like I contribute. I feel like, if anything, the contributions that I'd like to give more of kind of circle back to when you asked what I would like to add or remove from the video, which is I wish that I could contribute a little bit more to helping this, and I can, and I want to in the future, contribute a little more to helping the structure of the show, helping identify some general topics and stuff like that, so that, not to like pull behind the curtain for a little bit, so that sometimes we're not hashing things out in the last minute before we start recording. I think I could be better about helping be a little bit more of a planner, or contributing to things behind the scenes. But other than that, no, I generally think that I've contributed to the podcast. I've attended most episodes. I think there's only been 1 or 2 where I haven't been able to make it. So, yeah.
All right. That was mostly like, have you ever wanted to do more? And not so much, do you do enough? But I understand your answer.
And I think I would answer the same way. Not to get ahead of it, but I think that anything that I would want to contribute is going to come up in the next couple questions.
Dude, I love you so platonically, like almost equal to video games.
Oh,
you're such a good man.
Dude, I think of you as like, it's like in Nightmare Before Christmas when Oogie Boogie is filled with bugs. You're filled with memory cards and GameCube discs. Like, you're the walking incarnation of video games to me.
I think we're just 2 different cartridges in the same Retron.
Oh, that's so true.
Good game references. What a gamer.
These guys really know their stuff.
Alright, let's move on. Are there any solo projects that you'd like to incorporate in the Bideo?
So the only current solo project that I really do is my YouTube channel, which is a plug for me. It's Blinkoom, Blinkoom, on YouTube. And I don't know that incorporates to the video, but what I have done actually recently is try to put out videos that sort of correlate with the topic that we're talking about on the show. So, for example, we're going to record very soon an episode on what games we're excited for the rest of this year. And I recorded a video separately of me talking about that. And I think it does a couple of things. One, it helps make sure that I have my thoughts together so I can be more informed on the podcast and saying more intelligent things. Making sure that I don't leave anything important out that I might otherwise forget. And 2, I think it gives me a good spot to point people to where it's like, hey, if you want to know more about my feelings on this particular thing, you can go check out this channel. But in terms of like new solo projects that I'd like to incorporate, I think that there is probably a good opportunity for sort of those mini episodes that I mentioned before, for some of us to produce kind of solo or maybe smaller group like mini discussions, especially about things that we are particularly knowledgeable in, or maybe are a little more slanted towards that particular person's tastes. So I'd like to keep doing what I'm doing with that channel, but I'd like to also start helping fill out sort of the gaps between episodes with more interesting stuff.
See, that's really interesting. And as I went through my interview, uh, number 7 kind of changed, like, the way I thought about it. Because it's like the video is a podcast, but
Mm-hmm.
also the video is becoming like a website with possible reviews and such. And like you make videos and you do your Steve things where you're like, these are the games I've been playing this week, or these are the games I picked up at this sale or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that is totally a thing we could put on the website that totally, uh, pumps it full of gamey goodness. It
Yeah,
adds to the website.
and that's exactly the type of stuff I'm talking about. Or like uh, on the videos I produce for my channel, I might be a little bit less inclined to put in the extra effort. But if I was posting it to the website, I might want to make some video reviews for games and stuff, so that I can give kind of a more critical take and a more well thought out opinion. And I'm not taking a bunch of time on the podcast going into every positive and negative about a game. I can kind of summarize my feelings on a game when we talk about it on the show, and then I can point people to the website and say, "Hey, why don't you go check out the full video review I did over on the website?" So yeah, I think that you and I are pretty close to the same line of thinking there.
Yeah, and again, it's like, is the video a podcast or is the video like a gaming group thing with game review ideas, or like what actually is it, or what is it becoming? Like, it is a podcast, but is it becoming something bigger, or is it just a podcast where we kind of do side stuff on this website?
Well, going back to the conversation we had when we started the podcast, uh, I think you and I both are a source of endless enthusiasm for games. And the podcast is a good outlet for that, and YouTube is a good outlet for that, and the site is a good outlet for that. But we'll never run dry on the well of enthusiasm. So I think it'll keep growing into whatever we want it to be and whatever we have the time to produce. So I couldn't tell you exactly where it'll go, but I would definitely encourage people to stick around for the ride, because we have plenty of stuff to say. It's just a matter of when and how we say it.
That's super true. The only thing that's gonna actually stop me is physical sickness, illness, harm, like something that stops me from games. I don't know.
Let's not talk in the hypotheticals where we get like arthritis or something and can't play. Let's just assume that we're happy and healthy.
Yeah, let's stay away from the nightmares. Um, in your opinion, what do you bring to the table?
Um, so one, I an endless well of enthusiasm, as I mentioned in the previous question. But I one of the things that I like about the video is that each of us kind of has not a specialty, but we don't all approach games from the same angle or like with the same enthusiasms. We don't all like the same genres, and we don't even like engage with games the same way. And I think that of everyone on the podcast, I'm probably the most like collectory. Like I'm probably the most of a video game collector on the podcast, and I think that that is a cool angle to bring to the show. This whole show doesn't need to be about that, but I think that it gives interesting perspective. And I think that as sort of a knock on effect to that, I end up doing a lot of research into a lot of different systems and a lot of different weird games. And so I feel like if anyone on the show, I'm the most likely to be playing something kind of obscure or something kind of random, especially for older systems. And I think that that adds a cool variety to our show that you don't get to see in a lot of other shows, that are mostly just talking about the latest games and stuff. So I I like that I can bring those things to the table, but that they aren't the only things that we have. I like that you also have things that you are going to know more about that are total blind spots to me. Like you're way more likely to know of a random game on Steam or an MMO that's coming out that isn't super popular or something like or whatever's happening in speedrunning. Like you're more likely to know that and I'm not. So I appreciate that we can play off each other like that.
That makes a lot of sense. And I don't want to spoil Dan or Nick's, interview. But I would like to say Dan brings lengthy RPGs and animes and MMOs to the table. Like that's definitely something he does, and I was just like thinking about that.
Yep, totally. And it's this one's harder to quantify about Dan, but he also brings like a dedication to the games he plays. Like we're all motivated to beat our games, but Dan more than anyone I think is most likely to stick with a game no matter how long it is, and he's the most likely to try to push up against all the boundaries of that game, like to find and do everything in a game.
Yeah.
So, so
I know we're talking
yeah.
about him behind his back, and it's positive, but um, yeah, you're more likely to show up, and Dan will say, "Oh yeah, I played that game, and I did all the side quests and and like all the missions, and I'm like 3 trophies away from platinuming it."
Exactly. And you're more likely to like surprise me with this like completely out of nowhere game that I haven't like ever even knew was about to be released. And I feel like I'm most likely to bring up a game where I have to explain what the system is before I tell you what the game is.
This is Buster Boy for the business system. It's pretty rare.
Exactly.
I'd,
Like
I'd play Buster Boy for the business system. I'm not gonna lie.
I would love to play Buster Boy for the business system. Um, and to be honest, I think that Nick also brings unique stuff too. Like obviously you'll ask this question of everybody on the show, but Nick one has like an interesting balance of interests in all the different things that we play, and he's got like Nick has a very engineering mind. Like his mind thinks very analytically, I think. And so games that test that tend to be stuff he likes, and he gets into them in ways that I don't. Like I think about how he was really into Kerbal Space Program for a really long time. None of the three of us would ever be super into Kerbal Space Program, but Nick would. But at the same time, Nick is going to be into like the RPGs and games that he and I grew up together playing. So he ends up creating this cool blend. He's almost like sort of a wild card. You don't know who he's going to be in line with that day.
That's super true. I remember it was like so before I started talking to Nick a lot. Like I kind of knew him. Um, we were friends on Steam, and every day Kerbal Space Program for like I want to say years, but like
Yeah.
it was a lot. And he seems
Mm-hmm.
like the kind of guy to be like playing a lot of maybe SRPGs or things that take like definitely time to think about your next move and such.
Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if he's played it, but I feel like he of any of us would get really into Civilization or Sim City or something like that.
Okay, but honestly, number 6 is starting to be a thing. Like we've been interviewing you for a while, so let's move on to 8B, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we're on the last one, and
What else, or what more, could you bring to the table? Do you think you maybe do too much?
I mean, you want your last question to be like going out with a bang, but to be honest, I I don't think I do too much, and I don't think that there's anything more that I could bring that I haven't already talked about here. Like I have an enthusiasm and an eagerness to see the show get better and better, and to see like the scope of our ideas get bigger and bigger. But I don't know what that path looks like yet, and I'm just excited to push up on that and to give it my all as we continue to improve. I guess we will see where the podcast goes.
What a like PowerPoint business presentation that was. I'm ready to push the envelope and really, give it my all.
Sorry, part of that is like I have to do some of that in my day-to-day job, so it probably seeps into the conversations we're having here.
Yeah, dude, that's totally fine. Any closing thoughts or anything like that?
Just that one, this was a cool idea. I like stuff like this. I think that it'll be interesting to hear everyone's responses, and I think it'll be interesting for everyone who's listening to hear this stuff. And dude, the video's awesome, and games are awesome, and thank you for being a part of it. And we're on Spotify now.
We are on Spotify and Google Play Music. We are in 2 places at once.
Oh, games.
Dude, remember, you can find us at thebideo.com. You can hit contact us, and you can fill out a form and submit it, and we'll get it, probably. Nick is working on that. You can also email us at thebideo@gmail.com with any questions or concerns, or anything of that regard. But yeah, that'll do it. Thank you for listening, and I promise, not the next episode, but the next real episode will actually be about games and not what we think about ourselves.
Thank you for listening. Good night.
Good night.